Hello, and welcome to the My Wool Mitten podcast. This is the story of a 60-something-year-old woman doing her best to maintain life on a small family farm in the middle of the Mitten, Michigan's Lower Peninsula. Surrounded by sheep and wool, knitting, spinning, gardening, chickens, an old retired barn cat, and Kyle the Wonder Horse, I welcome you to the farm. My name is Carrie, and in this first episode of 2021, we'll say hello to the animals and then take a look back at some knitting and spinning projects and find out what still has a place in the lineup for 2021. You'll find more information and links in the down bar below, and you can reach me at MyWoolMitten on Instagram and also MyWoolMitten on Ravelry. Now, let's get started with episode 17, Knitting Back. And if you haven't already, please click the like and subscribe button to stay in touch.
There's a hawk in the tree right there. Say now. Here, sweetheart. Grumpy pants. Hey, buddy. What do you think? In just that short amount of time, look how much harder the snow's coming down now. I'm going to go in because I'm getting soaked. It's a really wet snow.
I am going to try to talk very efficiently and quickly about these items because I have a lot to get through. This is a finished object from last year that I don't think I ever showed you. I finished it before I started the Treasures of the Forest Path shawl. This is the Ashburn by Melanie Berg. And it was a funny story about this. A customer bought, this is our farm yarn from Serenity Farms, our Corriedale yarns, and she bought these and she had started the pattern and she just knew she wasn't going to finish it. She gave it to my daughter to finish, and my daughter worked probably 50% of it, and then she ran out of steam, and so I took it to finish it. And by the end, I was just ready to be done with it. I will say that I love the texture, and my favorite thing about it is the yarns. And like I said, it's our farm yarns. But it's a very long and odd-shaped shawl that is really, it's a shape of shawl that I find totally useless. Wrapped around my neck as many times as it needs to be, it just is uncomfortable and it's bulky and it doesn't look good. So I really have decided that triangle shawls or square shawls that I can fold into a triangle are the best ones for me. But this was yarn that we had spun. This was all spun up at Stonehenge, and this was in my Outlander phase. So this is Dunbonnet, which was more at CVM and Corriedale Cross. There might be some alpaca in this. The gray is 100% Corriedale. That was Gravel Road at dark. And then my very favorite, and this was from Francie and her son Castle blended together, and that is A Breath of Snow and Ashes, which to this day is my favorite Outlander book. So I love that it's in our farm yarns. It's not something that I think I would wear, and I'm not sure my daughter would wear. So great pattern. Love the picots. But I guess that's all I want to say about that. Oh, I guess I might also say this was worked on a US size 6 needle, and these were sport weight yarns. So a vintage project, but that was finished last year. Next up is one that I've shown several times on Instagram. I don't think I've ever talked about on a podcast. And this is the Pumpkin Hat by Bumblebee Acres Farms. It actually has a different way of saying the name that I can't pronounce, so I'm just going to call it the Pumpkin Hat. This was also Bumblebee Acres Farm yarn. And this is the Bumble Worsted, which is 100% Targhee wool, non-superwash. And that is in the Blue Barn colorway, so a tonal yarn. The pattern, like I said, is also by Bumblebee Acres, and the stitch marker is by Bumblebee Acres from Baby Bee. And I love this little mushroom stitch marker. I did this on a size 6 and a size 8. I did fewer pattern repeats than what it called for, and I've yet to put the little button on the top, but I wear it all the time, and every time I wear it, if someone other than me is here, I get compliments on it. It's, boy, I wouldn't be buying a sweater's quantity of yarn probably when I have a sweater's quantity of my own, but if I were, this would be one I would think about. Now this has been washed, hand washed, but still it's been washed, and like I said, it sees constant wear. So highly, highly recommend this pattern. And the yarn and the service from Bumblebee Acres. You know they're one of my favorites. So another, I finished this in October of last year, and it's in constant use. Another finished object I don't have here, but I'll insert some pictures, and if you follow me on Instagram you will have seen, and that is another Bumblebee Acres Farms pattern and yarn and stitch marker. I made the cozy hiker socks with a fingering weight yarn held double for my stepdaughter's birthday, and the little cat stitch marker again by Baby Bee. The pattern cozy hiker socks is by Senbee, who's also one of the dyers behind these beautiful yarns. And this is another in the yarn colorways. This is Red Barn in Autumn, And like I said, held it double. I did contrasting heels, toes, and cuffs. And I also worked the pattern toe up, and that's just what I prefer. But it's like one of those things where you think, why didn't I think of this before, to hold a sock yarn double to make a squishy, cozy sock? So another pattern and project that I was extremely happy with. And I'll insert a couple of the pictures here and the inspiration behind them. So again, well done, bee family at Bumblebee Acres Farms. Well, now just a little summary of one of my favorite knits from 2020. And you might hear my squeaky chair, you might hear the furnace kick on, but anyway, we carry on. But these were the R&R socks by Mars of Hey Brownberry podcast and Instagram and Pattern Store. And I have spoken about them before briefly on one of my episodes from last year, and they've been finished for quite some time. I've finished them in time to wear to go and vote. They were on my feet, and that was very symbolic and meaningful to me that they were. So I just thought I'd run through the details with you. Again, just a lot of meaning and a lot of sentiment and emotion in these socks. From the pattern to the pattern writer to the yarn to the finished object, and then to being able to wear them to go and vote. And I wear them a lot. So the yarn, once again, we're a blending of 2 Corriedale Farms and flax. The Shorn 2 is from a collaboration between Melissa of Knitting the Stash and Kathy, the shepherdess at Seven Sisters Farms. And that was where my new ram came from, Quincy, who you will have seen in the podcasts, who no longer lives here, but he was here for a time. And this was our Moonstruck, which is Corriedale with a little alpaca, so from our farm flock. Combining the two, I cast them on the day that Quincy arrived here. And these are a toe-up sock. Marsa's patterns are toe-up, and that's my preferred wear to knit socks. Most of you know me as being quite obsessed with mittens and making mittens, and I am. But I used to knit a lot of socks. And when our local yarn shop was still open, I taught a sock knitting class. I taught spinning for sock knitting, spinning yarns for socks knitting, and I knit a lot of socks. But as one does when they're so taken with something and do it so much, I got tired of it. And so I didn't knit socks for quite a long while. But it was okay. I had several pair of hand-spun, hand-knit socks that lasted me, as they do, but I was getting to be in need of some more. So between these, which were really my return to sock knitting, and then the Cozy Hiker socks that I mentioned previously, I'm kind of back in the groove of knitting socks. Not on quite such tiny needles, but still just enjoying them. So, like I said, these are toe up. Marsa's pattern does. I knit them concurrently, 2 at a time, but concurrently, and not on the same needle. I have 2 sets of needles, and so then I do 10 or 20 rows on one, 10 or 20 rows on the other, so that they're finished at the same time. And so, and as I said, I wore them to vote, and I'm looking forward to wearing them on Inauguration Day next week. So highly recommend the pattern. I love Marsa's patterns. I love that she has little chatty side notes with tips and tricks that you might incorporate into your sock knitting. And so just a well-loved, well-rounded pattern for me. And Marsa, I think I might even want to do another pair. So, there's my squeaky chair. So the R&R socks, I called them my Rest and Remember socks.
And I remember many things about the time that went into making these. So I highly recommend giving them a try. I did not make them very tall, as you can see, but they're just right. Just right. Last finished object that I just wanted to mention quickly were the little stars that I made over Christmas time. These are from Elizabeth Zimmerman's Knitter's Almanac book. I think it's called Christmas Fiddle Faddle or something like that. They're just little 5-row stars in a variety of yarns, and I was inspired to make some. I make these quite often. They don't have to be for Christmas. You know, they just look nice on a package. But I made these to go with a knit along that was offered by Sophie from Berkey's Creations, and I'll put a link to her podcast down below. Oh, I enjoy her so much, and with many thanks to Maria from Ninja Chickens for introducing her to us. But I really enjoy Sophie and her knitting and her enthusiasm and her goals in life, and so you would enjoy her too if you don't already follow her. So I will put a link to her down below. Hi, I'm back. One thing I forgot to say that I wanted to mention is this shawl that I'm wearing today. This actually belonged in the finished objects section of the video, but I didn't focus on it, talk about it. This is the Fleece Flight Shawl, written by Maria of Ninja Chickens, and this was a revisit. It was close to being done, and I kept messing up. I'm terrible with short rows, and this has a lot of short rows, and I just kept, oops, excuse my finger again. I just kept messing it up and messing it up and messing it up. So I had put it aside, and I really was thinking about even tearing it out, but I'm glad I didn't. I picked it up, and what I did, I actually had done, I think if you do the full size, there's 6 sections, and I had done 4. I wanted to do 6, and I thought, you know what, I'm just going to quit at where I'm at. So I did, I finished it, and then because I had different weights of yarn, I did just a single crochet border around the outside. So that was what did my friend Emily call it? Emily, who is AK Millie, who also has a podcast. This was not a New Year's Eve cast on, it was a New Year's Eve pickup. I picked it up and finished it, and I liked that idea, a New Year's Eve pickup. So that's what this is, and it's lovely, and I'm so glad that I did finish it up. Inspired a little bit, too, by Mars of Hey Brown Berry, who talked about hers on a podcast at the beginning of the year. So Fleece Flight by Ninja Chickens with mostly heritage breed or endangered breed wools yarns, but some of our own as well, and especially to finish it off. So yeah, I liked that Emily said that, a New Year's Eve pickup. Something else that I wanted to mention, I watched Britt Arnold's Vlogmas, her vlogs, Advent vlogs, and I enjoyed them so much. But something then she talked about at the start of the year that she, you know, so many people were talking about all their plans of what they're going to knit in the coming year. And she said something that really struck a chord with me, and that is that she has a goal to knit less this year, because she has a lot of other things to do in life, and that she had all the sweaters that she really needed and shawls and socks and things. And so I think I'm going to take that to heart too. Maybe I'll still, I know I'll still knit every day, and I've got the spinning to do and then some knitting to do. I've got to catch up on some handmade socks, but so I'll knit every day, but maybe not plan quite so many projects. What do you think about that? I mean, at first I was horrified. I was like, oh no, you can't not knit. And I still will knit, but there's something about the thought of that that intrigues me. So what do you think? What do you think about that? I'm sorry I'm so wobbly holding on to this. You can see I'm sitting up in the haymow. I was actually tracking a hen who's been laying her eggs up here, trying to find where she was going. So, all right, so that's all I wanted to say about that. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and I'll talk to you real soon. Well, now on to ongoing works. And some of these you will have seen in the past. I know that I talked quite a bit about this shawl when I cast it on, and I also talked about it in my update earlier in the summer. And the same with this sweater. I had talked about it at that time. The other things are newer cast-ons, but still cast-ons from 2020. So this is my Treasures from the Forest Path shawl by Patricia at Knitography, P410 on Instagram. And this was one of her patterns that she released this last year, Treasures from the Forest Path, and I am in love with it. It will be finished. It just got so big and warm that I put it aside, and then I've had a few other smaller projects to finish. So that's definitely coming back into rotation and possibly, hopefully, finish in January here. I'm about halfway through with it. This is one of Patricia's little stitch markers. The yarn is our own farm yarn. This is from a mother and daughter pair of Corriedales, and it's called Lineage, and I really, really like it. So I'm anxious for that to be finished. So just an update on that. Patricia just did such an amazing job with her patterns this year. So excited for her, or this past year. This second project is also from Patricia, and this was from her very first online class, knitting traditional Selbu mittens. And of course I signed up as soon as she announced it. And so you can see that they're not finished, and they're not going to be finished. They're going to be frogged. The class was fantastic, and I learned several things from it. And what more can you ask for when you take a class other than to learn at least one new thing? And I learned a couple of new things. I also think that the pattern and the yarns together is beautiful, but very small needles, and it just really bothers my hands to knit with such small needles these days. And so it's not something that I'm going to finish. But it was not a loss because, like I said, I did learn from the class. I watched every installment and read all of the information. But for right now, my hands just can't take that tight work. So highly recommend the mitten class for sure. Now, I haven't taken the sock class, and I know she's going to have some others coming up. But knowing how well Patricia does things, I'm sure that it would be something that you would enjoy and learn from. So that's what that was, but that is going to be frogged. Again, I know that I did talk to you about this sweater in New Mitten, and this was a pattern from Fable Knitwear, Fable Knitting, Fable Knits. I'll have to find out for sure and put in here. And this, all it needs is sleeves. And it's actually a long sleeve pattern, but I am going to make it short sleeves. So probably a weekend's work and it will be done. It's this is from New Mitten, a single strand, so nice and lightweight. I love New Mitten sweaters. So that won't take long to finish. But before that will come, I want to get right back to work with a sweater that I cast on. Was it back in October? It was when Ruth Bader Ginsburg passed away, and this is the Descent sweater. I'm making the pullover version, and it's for my very, very knit-worthy sister-in-law. Hopefully to keep her warm while she's out walking the dogs or doing her exercises. And so I just have to get back to work on that. It goes very fast, and I love working it. In this case, I'm holding 2 colors of New Mitten double for the color work, and the black is a commercial wool. So the body will be in a commercial wool. But lovely pattern, and I'm excited to get it finished. It will be, pretty quick going once I get through this part. My sister-in-law has tried it on, and things fit so far. And it's meant to be a little bit oversized so she can wear it over other things. And again, the Elizabeth Zimmerman stars. This one's out of New Mitten. And now, just look at this beautiful knit. This is the pattern Paris Quadrifolia from Katrine, who you probably know as Bed of Roses Knits. What a wonderful person. And for as long as I've been on Instagram. She has been so kind to me, and we've connected over several things. And you probably know that she opened an online shop, Bed of Roses. She makes beautiful knitting jewelry and the most amazing project bags, and she's now selling yarn and doing patterns. And so this was a knit along she was doing. It ended the end of last year, December 31st, and obviously I did not finish. I cast on with Katrine on December 1st, but I had to go back and forth a couple different times. I have such a strange gauge, and finally settled on something that I like pretty well. But still, oh, it's a little bit big, and I don't know. I can just really, this is not showing the cable as well as I would like it to either. And so I may take this back out and make it without the mohair. This is mohair, and so I don't know. I haven't quite decided. I love the feel of it. I may turn it into mittens, or I may just, use a different yarn. I'm not quite sure. I know I want to keep knitting the pattern. It's beautiful. And I'm finding it very simple. If you can knit a cable, this is a very simple pattern to do, I think. And so well done, Katrine. It's a gorgeous pattern. And it's a botanical influence that she had for this. And so, and I think she's planning to do some more, so I'm really looking forward to that. But just a joy to knit on and to think about my friend all the way around the world. So kind of interesting, Norwegian, Swedish, and Norwegian again. So those are the other things that I needed to talk about real quick and update.